Hello, my amazing developers. So in the previous video, we improved UI elements and we also fixed animation issues related to device orientation changes. Then we also looked at how to choose a video capture device where we wrote the code that supports all of the iPhone and iPad devices. In today's video, we will organize colors into assets library and we will also create extension to use colors in code. Then we will create a view that is used for switching between different types of cameras. And we will also look at code part that is related to switching between different types of lenses. So let's get started. So I have Xcode open up over here from the previous video. Now we will create colors in assets library. So let's head to the assets library. Here I'm going to create a new folder and I'm going to call it colors. So we have all the colors grouped over here. And I'm going to create a new color. Here I'm going to expand the right bar and go into its properties. Here we can specify the color name. So I'm going to call it background alpha 60. And by selecting the color, I will be going to the show color panel, bring it over here. So we have it in the center of the screen. And I'm going to choose the first of the options and make it 60, the opacity. We need to make it black color first, and now I'm going to choose 60 as opacity. That's what we want. We want our color to appear as 60 alpha with the black color. Hit save. Next, we will also create a color for selected. Here under the same colors folder, I'm going to create a new color set and call it selected color. And select the color, open up the show color panel. We will be choosing from here, if it is selected as Apple, select from the drop down developer. And in the developer, we are going to choose system yellow color. Close the color panel and save the color. We will be needing one more color for the text. So let's create another color under the same color folder. And right click on it and select color, new color set. Set its name to text on background alpha, and we will keep it white color. Our assets library in the Xcode project gives us an opportunity to organize all the icons, images, and colors organized under a single place, where we can get at a glance view the colors used in our application. So in future, when we need to change a certain element or certain color or an image, we can come to this assets library and update the image or update the color. This way, we don't have to scroll through the code, search through the code, find out the color and update it everywhere. So we can have an organized place for having all the colors grouped under single place in assets library. Now the assets library is set up. We will be creating an extension on UIColor to return the newly created colors in code. So select the extensions group, right click on it and select new file. Here, make sure Swift file is selected, click next, and I'm going to create its name as UIColor plus colors. Hit enter to create. And make sure we import UIKit over here and write the code to extend the UI color. So I'm going to have an extension on UI color. I'll be writing the code for getting the colors from the assets library. So make sure we write class var and background alpha 60 and its type is UI color. I'm going to return from the UI color named. This is the code to get the color from the assets library. Here I'm going to write its name background alpha 60, and make sure we force unwrap it, because we need to know 100% for sure that this is the name that we require to pick from the assets library. Next, create same way for the other colors. Here I'm going to call it selected of type UIColor, and return the UIColor from the assets library by using the named parameter, and call the name as selected, and make sure we force unwrap it. Same way finally for the last color, text color, text on background alpha, UIColor, return UIColor, text on background alpha, and make sure we force unwrap it. We need to write the variable with the parameter named as well. We will now create a view that is responsible for displaying the options between switching between different types of cameras. We are going to call it SwitchZoomView. So let's go ahead and create that. Now, under the views group, right click and select an option of new group. Here I'm going to call it Switch Zoom. I'm going to create a new file under this newly created group, and this time I'm going to choose CocoaTouch class. Click next, and in the subclass make sure we are extending UI view. We are subclassing from UI view, and here write the name as SwitchZoomView. I'm going to copy its name and click next. Make sure it's under the same place. Click create. Delete this code. I'm also going to create a new file of type view and paste in the name that we previously copied for creating the nib file. Let's head back to the Swift file, and here I'm going to write the code for initializing our view. I'm going to create an IB outlet of type week, private week var, call it content view, and its type is UI view. Then I'm going to override the init with frame and call super init frame. And also I'm going to override the init with coder and call the super init with coder. Then have myself a private method over here for initializing my the view. Call it custom init. Make sure we call our custom init method in the both overridden initializers. Here I'm going to have a variable for bundle.main, and a variable for nib name. Self. Going to ask bundle to load the nib name with nib name variable. Owner is self and options is nil. And add subview for the content view. Set content views frame to the bounds of the parent, and content views auto resizing mask to flexible width and flexible height. So our view fully grows. Next, head to the nib file and open up the file owner's property and specify the view name over here for the class. Switch zoom view and head to the connections. Select the content view. Select the content view and assign it onto the view. While the nib file is already open, select the view and head to the size and select freeform. Also in the properties, I'm going to specify width of 160 and a height of 60. Make sure we save, and to hide the bottom view, to get rid of the bottom view, just switch to another file and come back to the nib file again. the bottom view will be hidden. Select the main view and apply its color as clear color. And I'm going to open up the library and I'm going to have 3 buttons over here. This is because on the triple camera setup, we need to switch between from ultra wide, wide, and telephoto. So this is the maximum that we will be having as an option in the SwitchZoomView. Select all 3 of these buttons and from the bottom option, embed them in the StackView. We will be choosing StackView for this. While the StackView is selected, let's apply the constraints on the outer edges as 10 on all sides. While the stack view is also selected, I'm going to specify the alignment as fill and distribution as fill equally. Going to also set its spacing to 10. Now expand the stack view and select the first button and set its label to ultra wide. Ultra wide button and its text to 0.5. We will write 0.5 only. While the ultra wide button is selected, we are going to specify its background color to the newly created from the assets library background alpha 60 and set its text color to the text on background alpha color. And also we are going to apply the corner radius. It is layer.corner radius of, select the type number and specify value of 20. So it's a circle. Select the second button from the stack view and specify its label as wide button. And also do the same process. Here I'm going to say 1x for the text. I forgot to set up the ultra wide as 0.5x. So let's make sure we do that. And in the wide button, after the 1x as the text, we will specify the background color to background alpha 60 and choose the text color as the text on background alpha. Then we are also going to add the corner radius, same way, layer.corner radius, and specify the type of number and value of 20. Select the third button from the stack view and specify its label as telephoto button and head to the properties and write in 2x as the text, and in the background color select the background alpha 60 and the text color as white, the text on background alpha rather, and also specify the corner radius in the same way, layer.corner radius, select the type as number and value of 20. Next, we will be creating IB actions for the buttons, for the created buttons. Let's head to the Swift file, and here I'm going to have IB action function ultra wide button handler and have in a parameter of UI button. Similarly, I'm going to have another IB action with and a function of wide button handler and have a parameter of UI button. Have another function for the telephoto button handler, type UI button. Now we need to have an enum that tells us which state for the zoom is currently active. So we will we will create an enum over here, call it zoom state, and have options of ultra wide and another case of wide, and finally a final case of telephoto. And also in the switch zoom view, let's have a private property over here for the zoom state, the current zoom state. So zoom state.wide. Zoom state.wide is going to be the default one. While we are creating property, we will also create another private property where we are going to say the currently selected button, and its type is going to be UI button. Next, we will be creating IV outlets for the buttons. Private vvar. First, we need it for our StackView, UI StackView, and then we need it for our buttons. First one is the ultra wide button of type UI button, and IV outlet private vvar wide button, UI button, and finally we need it for the telephoto button. Let's head to the nib file and connect the IV outlets, expand the stack view and the buttons. Here I'm going to go to the inspector for the file owner and select for the stack view. First connect to the stack view, then connect the telephoto to telephoto, ultra wide to ultra wide, and wide button to the wide button. Next, also connect the IV actions. We can select the ultra wide button, and in the touch up inside, I'm going to point it to the file owner and select the telephoto handler. Sorry, it was the ultra wide. So here in the ultra wide, going to select the ultra wide and connect it to the ultra wide button handler. Wide button touch up inside event, we needed to handle it for the wide button. Telephoto should point to the telephoto event. Let's go back to the file owner, make sure everything is aligned properly. This event is for the telephoto, ultra wide is for the ultra wide event, and wide button is for the wide button, as well as all the views are properly aligned. It's set up properly. Stack view and the content view. Next, we will set the currently selected button when we initialize the view. So let's head to the Swift file, and in the custom init method, I'm going to say the selected button is the wide button, as well as I want the wide button to specify the title color of the selected color that we created from the extension of UIColor, and for the state is all normal. So let's create a protocol where we're going to answer the questions which button was tapped from the SwitchZoomView. So in the upper side, let's create a protocol and going to call it SwitchZoomView Delegate of type property class, and going to have a method. We're going to say switch zoom tapped and going to pass in the state where type is zoom state. Then we will be needing a delegate over here, property private weak var delegate, and specify the switch zoom view delegate. Next, we are going to update the IV actions to fire the delegate method. So here in the ultra wide, we are going to first ask the selected button to update its title color to the text on background for the state normal, and we are going to say selected button now is the ultra wide, and we are also going to say zoom state currently is ultra wide, and also ultra wide's button I'm going to specify the title color to the selected color, and for the state is normal. And also in the delegate, I'm going to fire the switch zoom and pass in the zoom state that we assigned ultrawide over here. Similarly, we will be updating the code for the wide button as we did for the ultrawide. Here I'm going to first ask the selected button to update its title color to text on background alpha for state is normal, and zoom state is going to be specified to the wide, and wide button is going to specify the title color as selected for the state normal. And selected button now is going to be wide button, and delegate is going to, we were going to fire the delegate method where the switch zoom is the state is the one that we have updated now to wide. Then finally in the telephoto we're going to do the same. Selected button, set title color text on background alpha, state is normal, and zoom state is going to be telephoto now, and the telephoto button is going to say that I need the selected color for the state normal, and also the selected button now is going to be telephoto. And we also need to make sure we fire the delegate switch zoom tapped and pass in the zoom state. While we are working in the code, we will be needing two extra methods to hide the ultrawide and hide the telephoto. This is because on a single camera devices like the smaller iPads and the previously old devices, we don't have multiple cameras. So here we will be only having wide camera. So we will be having an option to hide the ultrawide and telephoto. Now, I understand that for single camera, we will not be specifying any zoom state because our zoom state defaults to 1. But let's consider the new iPads, iPad Pro, where we have the ultra wide and wide angle. Here we need to hide the telephoto. And same way, if we are on the older iPhones that supports 2 cameras, here we have an option of wide angle and telephoto. So here we need to hide the ultra wide. So here I'm going to create a method called hide ultra wide button, and I'm going to ask ultra wide button that its hidden property is set to true. Similarly, I'm going to hide the telephoto button is hidden property is set to true. This is where StackView helps us because we have the equal spacing set up and a specific button can be hidden. So it doesn't collapse and create problems for constraints. While we are here, we are going to write code to support the orientation changes. When the device changes from portrait to landscape, we need to update the stack view. So here I'm going to create another function. I'm going to call it configure for portrait orientation. And here I'm going to say stack views axis is going to be horizontal on the portrait orientation. Same way for the landscape, I'm going to create a method called configure for landscape orientation, and its stack views axis is going to be updated to vertical. We will now add the switch zoom view in the CaptureView controller. So let's head to the CaptureView controller's nib file, and from the library I'm going to bring in a UI view. Make sure we add it in the root just above the record view, and going to specify its class name to SwitchZoomView. Make sure we apply the label as well, SwitchZoomView, and set its property to have the background color as clear color. We also need to assign a constraint where we're going to say I want it horizontally center in the container, and I want to align it to the bottom of the top of the record view and assign this view's bottom constraint to the record view with a good space of 30, and specify the width constraint of 160 and the height of 60. Now select all the constraints that we have added to SwitchZoomView and make sure we remove it from the build time. This is because in the code we will be needing to apply the portrait constraints as different and the landscape constraints as different. So when we switch, or rather when the user switches the device from portrait to landscape and landscape back to portrait, the proper constraints will be deactivated and activated according to the requirement. Make sure all of the constraints of SwitchZoomView has been removed from build time. Width constraint also should be removed at build time. Go ahead and save the nib file. Let's head to the CaptureView controller, Swift file, to have an IB outlet for the SwitchZoomView. So here I'm going to have an IB outlet just above the record view, private weak var SwitchZoomView of type same SwitchZoomView. Now let's also make sure that we connect our IB outlet by heading back to the nib file, expanding the views and selecting the file owner, selecting the SwitchZoomView and connecting it to the SwitchZoomView. Let's head back to the Swift file now. Now we will be applying the constraints. So let's head to the initialize constraints. Make sure we hide the right bar area for the properties so we have enough space. And under the portrait constraints, write in the specific constraints for the SwitchZoomView. So SwitchZoomView, I'll be saying I need its center X constraint equal to view's center X constraint. SwitchZoomView's width constraint should be equal to constant 160. And also SwitchZoomView's height anchors constraint should be equal to 60 in the portrait, and SwitchZoomView's bottom anchor constraint should be applied to the record view's top anchor with a space of -30. Next, in the landscape, we will do the reverse rather. So here I'm going to say SwitchZoomView's center Y anchor constraint should be equal to center Y anchor, and SwitchZoomView's width anchor should be reversed. That means now it should be 160, and here, sorry, the height constraint should be 160 and the SwitchZoomView's width constraint should be 60. And now in the SwitchZoomView's trailing anchors constraint should be equal to record views leading with a space of -30. Next, we need to also hide when the orientation is about to begin, hiding the SwitchZoomView. So we will be using the same code that we previously wrote, and that was the function for hiding the record view. So we will be renaming this this method, so we can hide the SwitchZoomView and also the record view. So go ahead and hold down the command key and click on the function name, and here I'm going to select edit all in scope. I will be saying hide views before orientation change, and also with the record views alpha I'm going to hide the SwitchZoomViews alpha. Similarly, in the show record view, we are also going to reuse this method and rename it So here I'm going to say show views after orientation change, and also along with record views alpha, we are going to say show in the switch zoom view. Next, when the device orientation changes, we need to update the switch zoom view's stack view. So from the horizontal axis, it should change to vertical axis. So for that, we will be heading to the setup orientation constraints. And here, when I'm in the activating the landscape constraints, I will be calling switch zoom view to configure for landscape orientation. And similarly, for the portrait changes, I will be asking switch zoom view you configure for the portrait orientation. Now let's also confirm to the switch zoom views delegate by heading down in the capture view controller at the end of the file and write ourselves an extension of capture view controller, extending or confirming rather to protocol that is switch zoom view delegate. And here we need to write in the method switch zoom tapped. For now, let's have a print statement that simply prints the state that we get back when the user taps on the switch zoom state, the button rather. Now we will be needing a function that sets up switch zoom view where we can apply the delegate to self. So switch zoom view dot delegate is equal to self. Let's see why we can't access the switch zoom views delegate. Oh, it was private. So we should not declare the delegate as private. We should expose it as public. So that's done now. And next, also call in the setup switch zoom view in the view did load. Let's confirm whatever we have done so far runs fine in the simulator. So select iPhone 11 Pro Max, that is our device that we were previously working on, and hit run. So here we have the application running and we get the 0.5x, that is for our ultra wide, and 1x is for the wide angle, and 2x is for the telephoto. So when we tap on any button, we should get the print statement of the state that we are currently tapping for. So that's fine, that is the wide angle, and 2x is the telephoto. Perfect, that's what we want. While we are here in the simulator, let's also confirm our orientation code. That's exactly what we want. And coming back to portrait, that's the behavior that we expected. Now our switch zoom view is set up. Next, we will be writing the code in the capture session controller for our capture device to update the zoom when the user requests to change between ultra wide to wide angle to telephoto. So let's see how we can do that. Let's head to the capture session controller. And here we are going to have a property to get the current capture device. Its type should be AVCaptureDevice. And in the initialize capture session, once we get the capture device, we need to say self capture device is equal to capture device. Next, we will be needing to declare a private property to have the zoom state. Here we will be saying zoom state default value is wide angle. We will be needing a method to set the zoom state on the capture device. So for that, we need to have a method in the private extension. Here we will be calling it set video capture device zoom. Here we will be needing a parameter video zoom factor of type CG float, and also an animated property of bool, and the rate at which we want the animation of the zoom to affect. Going to set it default to 0. First, we are going to check whether we have the capture device currently set in the class. If not, we are going to return from the method early by using the guard statement. Then we will be acquiring a lock on the capture device. So first we need to have a do catch statement, and here I'm going to try to get the device capture to acquire the lock, and if we fail to do so, we need to print in the error message, fail to get lock configuration on capture device with error. Let's pass in the error, and also going to return. Next, if we are asked that we need an animation, we are going to call the capture device to ramp to the video factor. So this is the video zoom factor, and with the rate passed in as the parameter. Otherwise, we will simply set the capture device zoom video factor to video zoom factor. And finally, once everything is fine, we can release the lock. So in order for us to set the zoom factor on the capture device and other properties as well, Apple tells us that we need to first acquire the lock and then set the properties. And once we are done and satisfied with the properties that we have applied, we should release the lock. Otherwise, the application will crash and Apple won't allow us to do so. Next, we will be needing methods to get the video zoom factor based on the zoom state and also the capture device that we have acquired based on the camera from the different iOS devices. So let's go ahead and create those methods. I'm going to return CG float from here. For now, let's return 1. And then I'll be needing a method that gets the video zoom factor, that gets the wide video zoom factor, and returns a CG float. Here we need to make sure we have the guard statement for getting the capture device. And if we don't get the capture device, we need to return 1 from here. That's going to be our default video zoom factor for the wide angle. And here going to switch over the device type of the capture device. We will be checking for the built-in triple camera and need to return 2 here, and for the built-in dual wide camera also going to return 2, and in all other cases we are going to return 1. So this means if we have a triple camera or a dual wide camera, the starting zoom level is from 1, and that is for the ultra wide. So the next one is the wide angle. So wide angles in these camera setups is 2. So that's why we are returning 2. And for all the other cases where we have dual camera setup, that means for the wide angle and telephoto, the zoom level should be 1. Similarly, for the telephoto, we are also going to create a function, get telephoto video zoom factor that also returns CD float. And same way we need to get the capture device, else we will return 2. That is the default zoom factor for the telephoto lens. And same way we are going to switch over the capture device dot device type, and if we have built-in triple camera, we are going to say the zoom factor is 3, and if it is built-in dual camera, that means it has one of the wide angle and one of the telephoto. So here we need to return 2, and for the rest of the cases we need to return 2. Now in the video zoom factor method, we will be switching on the zoom state, and if it is ultra wide, we are going to return 1, and for the case of wide, we are going to return the result acquired from get wide video zoom factor method, and in case if it's telephoto, we are going to return the result acquired from the get telephoto video zoom factor. Next, we will be creating a method to set the zoom video factor. So here we will be creating a method set video zoom factor that first gets the video zoom factor and then calls the set video zoom video capture device zoom with the video zoom factor, and we are not going to pass anything with the animated. So we need to set the animated property that defaults to false, because for default behavior we don't want it to be animated when updating the zoom factor. So now when the application runs, and if one of the camera is ultra wide, the default zoom factor that AVFoundation starts with is 1. So we are initializing with ultra wide. But if you check out the Apple's camera application, we always start with the middle one, that is the wide angle. So for that, we will be needing to get the current video factor, and we are also initializing our capture session that we start with wide angle. So we will be updating the video zoom factor on the capture device. So let's go ahead and do that. So in the initialize capture session, once we have asked the capture session to start run, we are going to update the set the video zoom factor. Make sure to set the video zoom factor after you have asked the capture session to start running, because if you apply this piece of code before the running has been asked, before you start running the capture session, it has no effect. The setting zoom factor will have no effect. Now we will be needing a method to update the zoom state on the capture session controller. So let's go ahead and create that. We need to scroll all the way up to the class definition where everything is public, and have a new method over here, set zoom state. We are going to need a parameter that is of type zoom state, and first we are going to update the zoom state of the class to zoom state and call in the set video zoom factor. So it updates the currently displaying capture session controller details. Now we need to call this code from the capture view controller. So let's head to the capture view controller Swift file, and in the delegate where we were having a print statement, let's go ahead and remove this and call in the capture session controller to set the zoom state that we have got back from the SwitchZoomView. So now when we run our application on a real device, here we can confirm, I'm going to open up QuickTime over here. We can confirm that we have the 1x working. And when we tap, let's move this aside so you guys can see what I mean. And if I tap in the 1x, it updates to the wide angle, and 0.5x is the ultra wide angle, and the 2x is the telephoto. So that's brilliant. Our code is working perfectly fine now. With that, we conclude today's video. Stay tuned to the channel for amazing content. If you like the video, hit like. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And if you want me to cover any extra material in future, please mention in the comments. I'll be covering that. Alright guys, thank you so much. Bye bye.